Hey, everybody. This is my first podcast in a long time. So I hope it's not too rusty, but it will be. But you know what? I just am going to start. So, what I'm going to talk about in this podcast today, uh, I'll try to talk about it in a way that's clear. It's a lot of information. I'm leaving out 99% of the historical events, but I just want to sketch out the where China was and how China got to where it was when World War II started in China in 1937. And this is the big point that I want to make, or one of them. The origins of World War II are in China. They're not in Poland, not in Europe, certainly not in Pearl Harbor. Think about it. Pearl Harbor doesn't really happen until almost 1942. So the United States doesn't enter into World War II until almost 1942, December 7th, obviously, 1941. So the United States, as in World War I, was extremely late in getting into the World War. But I don't want to go there right now. Let's just talk about China. So the reason I want to start this course with a book on China is that in 2019, China is our greatest economic rival. If you're paying any attention at all to the news, uh, you know about the tensions between the US and China in 2019, the tariff wars that are going on. Um, Militarily, I wouldn't say China is our biggest enemy. I still would, our rival, maybe that's a better word. I still would say that that belongs to the Russia. But who knows where we'll be in 10, 15, 20 years. So China, in as a powerful nation, will play an impact on your life. It's already playing an impact on your life, but really for the rest of your lifetime. So I wanted to give this class a background on the tensions between China and the United States, especially with a focus on World War II, and also, just as importantly, the development of modern China, which definitely can be traced back to World War II. So that's why I'm starting with China. That's why I'm having you pay attention to China. I just think educated Americans need to understand China better than we often do. Okay, so between 1937 and 1945, between 14 and 20 million Chinese died. I just want to stop myself right there. I mean, that's 6 million that's unaccounted for, right? I can't stress the horrible but diabolically accurate phrase of Stalin: one death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic. We're just talking about insane and immense suffering. So, tens of millions of Chinese died between 1937 and 1945. Uh, the Chinese resistance to Japan to this day is called the War of Resistance, or the War of Resistance to the End. It's very much a central pillar of modern day Chinese nationalism, the resistance against Japan during those years, and the suffering that occurred during those years. Um, Another figure, which is too mind boggling to really comprehend, in those years between 37 and 45. By the way, I'm sure over the course of the semester I'm going to misstate dates and that kind of a thing. I just don't have time to go listen to these podcasts. So if I make a mistake on a date, let me know, or just figure it out. I apologize in advance. Another 80 to 100 million Chinese became refugees during the war years, which had a profound impact on Chinese society. One historian has said that with all the refugees that were fleeing the Japanese, what this did was it undermined the traditional notion of the family in China, especially veneration of the elderly, because the elderly became kind of difficult to move. And so what you had was just even in addition to the death, just this incredible upheaval in China during this period. Now, when we talk about World War II in China, as my colleague Wing Chun Ying reminded me the other day, we're really talking about Eastern China. We're talking about the area of China nearer to the Pacific Ocean. China is an enormous country. So we're basically talking about the 40 or so percent of China that if you draw a line straight south from Beijing, the capital of China, all the way to the southern border of China, that is the most populous area of China. Of course, the ports are very wealthy. So when I'm talking about World War II in China, I'm basically talking about the eastern half of China. Okay, I just wanted to get that out. Um, so one of the things that's significant and that Mida talks about is that World War II and what the implications of what it meant to resist the Japanese, it destroyed any hope of China becoming a pluralistic society. Now, Mida talks a lot about pluralistic society and the lack of pluralism in China during World War II. And what is pluralism? Very simply, a pluralistic society is a society like the United States. That there's a diversity of people, there's a diversity of political ideas. So a pluralistic society is a society which is really noted for its tolerance in terms of politics, in terms of religion, in terms of ethnicity. Uh, uh, Pluralistic societies are very diverse. Many people believe in many different things, and they tolerate other beliefs, political beliefs, even if these political beliefs, religious beliefs, social beliefs, don't match their own. This is not China during and after World War II. Pluralism is foreign to World War II China and post World War II China. And all I have to do is point to Hong Kong and what's going on in Hong Kong today. And the Chinese government, I actually would have thought by now that the Chinese government would have gone in and violently suppressed the democratic protests that are going on in Hong Kong today. And I'll talk about the history of Hong Kong very briefly in a second. I would have thought that, as in Tiananmen Square, in the I guess it was the late 80s, maybe I've got that wrong, but when the Chinese government came in and killed thousands in Beijing, I would have thought the Chinese government might have come in to Hong Kong and shut down these protests. Thank God they haven't. I think there's other ways to shut down protests now, sadly. But the point being that the Chinese government doesn't understand pluralism. It just doesn't, and I'm not apologizing for the Chinese government at all. I'm just saying that China doesn't see itself as a pluralistic highway. For the central government has a kind of a communism that has room for a lot of capitalist behavior, and it's my way or the highway. This is one of the legacies of World War II. So the other thing I want to talk about about China is that